So why does a man from the age of muskets and horse-drawn cannon still dominate headlines, inspire films, and spark fierce debate in the modern world? Because Napoleon didn't just conquer territory, he conquered ideas, and ideas don't die. Napoleon took over France, the country was a mess. The French Revolution had torn everything apart, and the economy was falling apart with it. Napoleon promised to fix things, and in a lot of ways, he actually did. But it wasn't as simple as it sounds.
Napoleon, as many of us know, was a major French military leader and ruler who rose to power after the French Revolution. He became famous for his military skills and helping bring stability to France during a time of chaos and many political changes.
Napoleon III ruled France from 1852 to 1870, during a time when industrialization, nationalism, and imperial competition were transforming the global landscape. His goal was to restore France as a major world power, and he pursued that through a combination of modernization at home and expansion outside.
You live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
He was born in 1769 on an island called Corsica, and while he was being born, the island was being taken over by France. And growing up, he was an outsider, and he had a very thick accent and had a very huge chip on his shoulder to fill. He eventually changed his name to a French name, Bonaparte, to fit part of a leader, but he always kept that outsider ambition. The French Revolution was a very big break for him. It helped clear out all the old generals, and it helped show that talent actually mattered more than where you came from and your bloodline and all that. At the same time, the current government, the dictatorship, was very weak and corrupt at the time, and France was a horrible mess, and people were begging for someone to take leadership and help guide them through this rough time. Napoleon helped prove to the people that he was that man because he did something what he called a whiff of a grape shot. He used cannons to clear out a whole mob in Paris to save the government, and he became a hero to everybody, and he helped use propaganda to fix his image, and he brought back artifacts from his journeys as a little collection. And one thing he brought back was a Rosetta Stone, and he portrayed all his losses as wins because he was a genius at brain himself. Then he finally took over France, and he was in charge. He created a code for himself to help France get a legal system, and he made peace with the Catholic Church, and he even held national votes to make his power look legal, even though he was a dictator.
Napoleon Bonaparte was born Napoleone de Bonaparte. He was the son of Carlo Bonaparte and Letizia Romanino. He was the second child of his parents' 8 surviving children. His oldest sibling was Joseph Bonaparte, born Giuseppe di Bonaparte, who for a portion of his life would reign as the King of Naples and later the King of Spain and the Indies. The third sibling, the sibling after him, was Lucien Bonaparte, born Luciano Bonaparte, who was the first Prince of Gagnon and Musagino and an adept politician. After was the fourth child, Elisa Bonaparte, who was born Mariana Bonaparte, Princess of Lucana and Biabani, and later the Grand Duchess of Tuscany. Next was the fifth sibling, Louis Bonaparte, born Luigi Bonaparte, who was the King of Holland. The sixth was Paulina Bonaparte, who was born Maria Paulina Bonaparte. She was a French imperial princess and the first sovereign duchess of Guastalla and princess consort of Sumala and Rosiano. Seventh was Carolina Bonaparte, who was born Maria Anizata Carolina Bonaparte, an imperial princess of France and the queen consort of Naples. And finally, the last sibling, the youngest brother, Jerome Bonaparte, born Girolamo Bonaparte, was King of Wisteria and he also bore the title of Prince of Montfort, becoming the president of the Second French Republic during the reign of his nephew Louis Napoleon. Despite his parents' prolific amount of children, Napoleon did not share this trait, as he only produced a record of 3 children, 2 of which he acknowledged, while the third, an Alexander Golana Waleska, son of Napoleon's Polish mistress, would remain unacknowledged until DNA evidence confirmed it. His other 2 children were his one legitimate child, known as Napoleon Bonaparte II, who was son of his second wife, Marie-Louise, and his second illegitimate child, Charles Leon, by his mistress, Louise de la Lagine.
Napoleon Bonaparte's leadership was heavily shaped by 3 key psychological traits: ambition, a need for control, and growing overconfidence. From a young age, Napoleon showed intense ambition and a drive to rise above others. He quickly advanced through the military and eventually became Emperor of France. His writings reveal a powerful belief in himself, which some historians link to the traits of narcissism, suggesting his confidence was a part of a larger psychological pattern. He also had a strong need for control. Napoleon closely managed both military strategy and government decisions, rarely allowing others to challenge him. While this created efficiency early on, it also meant that he made decisions without fully considering others' perspectives. Over time, repeated success led to overconfidence. After major victories, he began to see himself as nearly unstoppable. This mindset influenced his decision to invade Russia in 1812, despite serious warnings. The failure of that campaign showed how his overconfidence could lead to major mistakes. Napoleon's psychology not only shaped his own decisions, but also influenced those around him. His confidence inspired loyalty and motivation in his troops, but his need for control limited open discussion. Today, his behavior is still studied in psychology, showing how traits like ambition and overconfidence can both drive success, but also can lead to failure.
And finally, it was the last move to become the emperor, and he took the crown, put it on his own head. That was the ultimate power move, showing that he didn't owe his success to anybody, and how he went from a kid from a small island to the most powerful man in the world.
First, he tackled the laws. Before Napoleon, different parts of France followed completely different rules. Imagine trying to run a business when every town has its own set of laws. It was chaos. So Napoleon created a single legal code for the whole country. This made trade and business way easier, but there was a problem. The new laws were written to benefit the rich, property owners, and government more than regular people.
One of his most important achievements in France was the diplomatic code, a legal system that established equality before the law, protected property rights, removed many of the old feudal privileges, and influenced legal systems in many countries. He also made important reforms during France during this time, including improving education by creating a stable school system, strengthening the economy by founding the Bank of France, and reforming tax collection to make the government more efficient.
He created the Bank of France. Think of it like a national bank that controlled the country's money. It helped stabilize prices and made people trust the economy again, which was a big deal after years of revolution. But Napoleon didn't set this up just to help everyone. He worked with a small group of wealthy banks, and together they basically gave themselves control over the entire financial system. Since Napoleon had already weakened the government bodies that could have stopped him, nobody could push back.
One of his most important contributions was economic modernization. Under his rule, France expanded its railroad system, improved banking and finance, and invested heavily in infrastructure. The redesign of Paris under Baron Haussmann became a model for modern cities, influencing urban planning not just in Europe but around the world. These developments helped connect markets, increase trade, and position France as an important player.
Napoleon also expanded French territory and influence across much of Europe through military campaigns. However, his constant wars eventually weakened France, especially after his failed invasion of Russia in 1812.
His biggest and worst idea, though, was something called the Continental System. Basically, Napoleon told all of Europe, nobody is allowed to trade with Britain. He wanted to destroy Britain's economy, but it totally backfired. Countries that depended on British goods suddenly couldn't get them. People started smuggling stuff in anyway, and the whole setup was rigged to benefit France while everyone else suffered. It ended up hurting Europe's economy way more than it ever hurt Britain's.
However, Napoleon III's impact wasn't only economic. He also played a major role in imperial expansion. France strengthened its control in places such as Nigeria and also expanded into Southeast Asia, particularly Vietnam. Like many European powers at the time, these actions were often justified as a civilian mission, but they were also driven by the desire for resources, influence, and economic gain. While this increased France's global presence, it also contributed to long-term conflict and instability in these colonized regions. In addition to this, Napoleon III was heavily involved in military affairs. His participation in the Crimean War helped strengthen France's position in Europe, and his support for Italian unification reshaped the political map of the continent.
Napoleon's downfall is what led Napoleon forced into his final exile. He had already been exiled before. This was to the island of Elba, located in Italy. And now, 1 year after this exile, we're in June of 1815 now, Napoleon took a risk and went to fight the Battle of Waterloo, primarily against the Duke of Wellington, who had led a British army, and they had support from the Prussian army. The Battle of Waterloo ended up being one of the bloodiest battles in the Napoleonic Wars, with tens of thousands of warriors killed. Napoleon had lost this battle due to the enemies having combined allies, and there was also poor weather in Waterloo. It had rained heavily the night before, which led to muddy terrain in Waterloo on the morning of June 18th.
He was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo in 1850 and was later exiled, making that was the end of his rule in France.
After Napoleon lost, he knew his army was now hopeless, and so he returned to France. But the coalition armies that had defeated him in the Battle of Waterloo, they were advancing towards France. And also, the people of France, they were giving Napoleon political support, but now Napoleon had lost that political support. So now Napoleon has no choice but to renounce and give up his throne before being exiled to the remote island of St. Helena. And so that is why people call the Battle of Waterloo Napoleon's final defeat. And so he stayed in St. Helena for the rest of his life until he died in 1821 due to stomach cancer.
But not all of his military efforts were successful. His attempt to establish a French-backed monarchy in Mexico ultimately failed, showing the limits of his powers and damaging France's international reputation. Overall, I think that Napoleon's global impact was mixed. Although he helped modernize France and contributed to the development of a more interconnected world, his imperial ambitions and military interventions oftentimes led to conflict and failure. His legacy reflects the complexity of leadership during a time of rapid global change, where progress and power often came with heavy consequences.
Overall, Napoleon had a lasting impact on France throughout legal systems, education, and many economic reforms. But his ambition also led to widespread wars and eventually his downfall in France.
So here's the bottom line. Napoleon did some genuinely good things for France's economy. He organized the laws, set up the national bank, and tried to make France the most powerful country in Europe. But almost everything he did also helped the rich who supported him. He was a reformer, sure, but he was looking out for himself the whole time.
If history remembers me stained with coffee and rain. Tell my mother